Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us. Another great day here at FII, and they never seem to disappoint us. Each year carries more interesting topics, more insightful discussions, more amazing speakers. We've been here all day, and I'm sure that most of you are just maybe looking forward another exciting session at the end, toward the end of this day. I promise you this session will be very insightful. It will bring great added value. My name is Mayben Khadra. I'm a senior business anchor at CNBC Arabia, and I would love to welcome our speakers here today. Lars Clasen, Cruise Saudi, Laurent Germain, Group CEO at Egis, and Paul Sankey, Chief Design Officer at King Salman International Airport. Thank you so much for joining us. And we're talking about a very interesting topic, and it's urgent and impactful at the same time. We're talking about sustainability, smarter sustainability, and what does it mean for net zero. So Lars, let me start with you here. And when you look at Cruise Saudi, to what extent are you integrating sustainability into your offering, your tourism offerings?
Well, Cruise Saudi actually has two different offerings. We have the cruise line for consumers, and then we're also building up Saudi as a cruise destination for attracting other cruise companies coming to the kingdom. And on the cruise line side, a cruise ship is a resort which is moving, which requires a lot of energy. So we focus on actually trying to increase energy efficiency, to reduce energy consumption. And we're doing that, amongst others, by trying to reduce speed, because cruise is not transferred from A to B in a certain given time, but cruise is all about offering a good leisure experience, and we're not being paid for speed. So we're trying to reduce speed in order to reduce our carbon footprint. And on the terminal side, we always develop the terminals according to the very latest energy efficiency standards and sustainability practices, and use modern technology in order to achieve that.
That's very interesting. I'm going to come back to you with another question about Saudi cruise. But before that, Laurent, you're an expert when it comes to infrastructure, and it's specifically sustainability and building sustainable infrastructure. So what technologies are you using today? To what extent do you think that the world is evolving towards a more sustainable infrastructure?
Well, first of all, I mean, the trend is not good. You know, a few days ago, the UN issued the report, the annual report on the emission gap. And the conclusion is that the emissions increased by 1.3% in 2023 compared to 2022. Two optimistic news: Europe has reduced its emissions by 7.5%, and China has reached its peak and will decrease the emissions in 2024 of 3%. So the challenge is becoming more and more difficult, to reach, I would say, the 1.5 degrees. What shall we do? First of all, we should focus on eco-conception. So we should, at the moment where we conceive the infrastructure, make the technical choices in terms of material, in terms of the choices we make in the construction of the infrastructure, the least impacting on the environment. This is called eco-conception. And in a company like mine today, 70% of our projects are done through eco-conception. Eco-conception means also being more resilient. Climate has a lot of impact on the existing infrastructure. And so we shall, of course, use the data that we forecast in the future and integrate them at the moment where we are conceiving the infrastructure to make sure that when they will be hit by the phenomena in the future, they will be a lot more resilient. For that, we need to use the data of the future, which means we used to rely on the engineers and not on AI. You know, people talk about a lot of AI. AI, of course, can help us analyzing the data of the past, not the data of the future. So what is also very much needed are the engineers. They will solve the paradox of reducing the emissions and building more sustainable infrastructure.
So I'm going to come back again to you with regards to the future, your future outlook. But before that, the aviation industry globally is huge and monumental when it comes to its role in shifting toward a sustainable future. And we've got Paul here with us today, and I want to understand from you, looking at the design of airports, to what extent are we today using strategies, and especially for King Salman International Airport? So to what extent are you relying on strategies when it comes to the designing that actually accompany and align sustainability as well with it?
It's very interesting. I think you were talking about the future. That's where we are. We're talking about future-ready infrastructure, future-ready buildings. So we have, I guess, something like 3 or 4 things that we need to really think about when we're actually designing and delivering. So it's not only the design, it's the way that we deliver, but we're also thinking about the operation of the airport. So in terms of sustainability, we have a big master plan. It's a huge development, and we've focused on how to make that construction and infrastructure sustainable. So we're thinking about the future. So how do we do that? So we're looking at smart building strategies. So there are probably 3 or 4 things that we need to do. First thing is we need to build less to actually build what we want. So we're thinking about the operation, but how can we build the least amount because if we build something, we're generating carbon, we're generating energy. The second is to build smart. So we're looking at doing things that require maybe passive means of shading the building, not using lots and lots of electrical power to power the building. The other area that we look at is the passenger experience. We're creating for the people of the kingdom, but also for visitors, a really special airport. And they will come to the airport if they believe that we have a sustainable airport. So to do that, we're looking at minimizing the touch points. So we're actually talking about a personalized journey for the passenger. Hopefully using mobility systems other than cars to actually come into the airport. It's more efficient. People don't like to wait in traffic queues. They don't like to wait in queues at checking. So we're bringing in technology to solve some of those solutions so that it becomes a much more pleasing and better passenger experience for those people. And finally, we're looking at how to minimize the impact of energy consumption in the airfield. So we're building 6 runways. Eventually we'll have 6 runways, building another 4 runways. And we're actually positioning all the terminals close to the runways. So the airlines have the smallest route to get to actually the airport. So I'll give you an example. I flew this week. The actual taxiing time at both airports took longer than the flight.
I completely relate. I've been there.
Okay, and that was using fuel on the ground. Now, if we can shorten the taxiing times, it's better for the airlines, it's better for the passenger. So that's partly what that's...
So just a quick follow-up here. Does that come with additional cost? I mean, buildings in the narrative and in the target of achieving sustainability, does it cost more than just building what we used to build?
Again, our investor wants us to build efficiently and to build within a reasonable limit. So benchmarking has been carried out to create the airport. Some things will cost us more. We're looking at using smart engineering. So sometimes we use devices that will give us better energy consumption. Because we're actually looking beyond delivering the building. We're looking to the 50 or 100 years that the airport is in operation. And that's where a lot of the energy is consumed. So if we actually produce more efficient buildings, we spend a little bit more on some of the systems and the technology, we will actually create a much better model in the future for the actual occupier and the owner.
I was coming to you, Laurent, anyway, because I wanted to ask you the same because you're an expert when it comes to infrastructure and sustainable infrastructure. So I wanted to ask you exactly the same. Does the cost really differ?
No, I think, if we look at wind and solar, the acceleration in wind and solar will be responsible for 38% of the reduction of the emissions by 2050 if we continue on that trend. The technology on wind and solar is known already. We have this technology. And with the replicability, the more we do solar farms, the more we do wind facilities, the price, per unit will decrease.
It's sort of economies of scale.
Yes, of course. And that's why we need to increase the financing. The big issue is not technology. The big issue is the financing. On the, I would say, sustainable infrastructure, we are spending $1.8 trillion a year. It's already a record high, but we would need to spend double if you want to reach the objective in 2050.
That's very interesting. So, Lars, when you look at the future, what's your future vision when it comes to sustainable tourism, sustainable travel? I mean, do you think that this sector will have to do a lot of contribution, major contribution to achieving net zero?
I think travel and transportation, I would like to look at it as one. And in the future, certainly there will be new engine types being able to burn hydrogen or use hydrogen as a fuel, or other things of which we don't know yet, maybe molten salt reactors or other technologies. And especially in the cruise industry, this is extremely important because, as I said, we are trying to deliver a wonderful vacation and leisure experience to the guests, which require a wonderful environment, and so we need to protect it. And but if we look at transportation and travel, there are 500 cruise ships worldwide. There are 50,000 cargo ships worldwide, and 90% of worldwide trade is being transported on ships, or above 90%. So, and those ships have a useful life of 20 years, and they all run on fossil fuels. So we thought a little bit about how can we make an impact now? I mean, what is the topic of our panel? How can we use smarter sustainability to unlock net zero earlier than 2050? And Saudi Arabia being located in a wonderful strategic location at the Red Sea, where 13% of worldwide trade is passing by, and because of Suez Canal. And these 50,000 cargo ships, you cannot retrofit them. It's very, very costly. They need to burn sort of diesel or fuel oil. But how can we make them sustainable now? Part of the Saudi Vision 2030 is promoting hydrogen. So why don't we try to create sustainable marine fuel and delivering it to being able to fuel all the ships passing by with sustainable marine fuel? That would make an impact now. And this is a short-term impact. Ultimately, there will be newer technologies, there will be better technologies, but that would make an impact now. And this is where we believe we should try to focus in the short and mid-term, and not forget about the long term, and use other technologies in the long term to make it even better.
So what you were saying, Lars, is that we have to use the technology we have today to make a difference today, and not wait for another 10 or 20 years before we start making this difference. So I want to ask you, Laurent, Lars was talking about how technology, about building hydrogen marine fuel. When you look at the infrastructure sector today, do you see that we are using enough technology to actually make an impact and make infrastructure more sustainable throughout the whole process?
Yes, I think we use a lot of technology. We are using AI. We are using eco-design when we conceive the infrastructure. I think we have a lot to learn with data. We can't manage what we don't know. So we need to collect more data on the existing buildings, on the existing infrastructure, to learn from this data in order to integrate in the way we conceive and we build and we exploit infrastructure a more sustainable way. The technology is there. I think the technology must be used more in accordance to the data that we collect from the different existing infrastructure.
That's very interesting. When I hear what investors are saying about sustainability, it seems like more and more investors and more consumers as well want to make decisions that are not as harmful for the climate and for the environment. And this is something that we are starting to see more and more. Consumers, even when I go to a supermarket, I see some checking the package. Is it sustainable? Is it eco-friendly? Is it environment-friendly? So Paul, to what extent do you think that this is something that not only here in Saudi, because here everything is going to the future, everything has an overall vision, but when I see what globally is happening with corporations, some of them lack this vision to have a better future and to actually understand that consumers want to make decisions that are not harmful for the environment. So to what extent do you think that this is something you are witnessing here with visitors to King Salman Airport?
Well, I think people are looking for choices in terms of sustainability. They want to know, is this a sustainable way of travel? Is this it varies across countries. Here in the Kingdom, our aim is to produce sustainability as a future for the country, and to promote that, to encourage people to come to the Kingdom. So when they see, if they're going to travel to the airport, for instance, that experience will include for them the opportunity that this is a low energy building, this is a fantastic experience, this is a gateway, this is displaying something about the region, something that the country and the city can be proud of. So displaying that and explaining how we've achieved those things is very, very important, because people do want to know. They want to know what.
Laurent, I would love to hear your feedback on.
Yes, I mean, the consumers, the candidates to join our companies, our own employees, they want to know exactly how we are contributing to the transition. That's why, to take some examples, a lot of companies are now committed to the science-based target initiatives, and it's quite a difficult process. In 2024, 1/3 of the companies which were involved were removed because they were non-compliant. True. So, it's not possible to do greenwashing anymore, because, you can be removed, and if you are removed, then, it backfires. Second, the valuation at the stock exchange of companies seen as real contributors to the fight against climate change is higher than companies not contributing. That will, of course, lead the shareholders or the potential investors to focus more on the green assets. And third, the banks are now totally focused on reducing in their portfolio all the activities that are not contributing to the fight against climate change. And if you see, the number of sustainability-linked loan, where a company is contracting a loan with a bank against reaching a certain amount of KPI, which was the case of my company. This year, we raised money through a sustainability-linked loan, and the KPI, the interest rates, depend on the percentage of the staff which is trained to eco-design. And this, of course, will lead to a lot of changes in behaviors that will have an impact on sustainability.
For me, this is really positive news. But I want to ask you here, Lars, for some consumers, they are willing to pay an extra. They're willing to pay a premium to make decisions that are environment and climate friendly. In the tourism sector, from your experience, do you see that tourists are as well willing to pay more to travel sustainably?
Well, I think in a few years' time, this will not even be the question whether you will have to customers who are paying more. You won't find any customers in a few years' time if you're using old technology. This is my view on this, and you really have to go forward and lead the industry in a way by example. I mean, we have a cruise ship on order which will be able to run net zero, and this all cruise lines should go that way. And the technology will be adjusted. There will be other technologies. This may not be the very latest in 10 years' time, but it is possible already now. It is costly. and we need to find ways to leverage that. But I think in a few years' time, you won't have even a choice, because also from the regulatory side, there will be a lot of pressure if you sail with your cruise ship to the EU. EU fuels, ETS, there are a lot of regulatory costs,
Pressure.
which and you've just got to deal with that and have sustainable offerings.
Yeah, Laurent, I would love to hear your thoughts on that, especially when it comes to the regulatory pressure.
Well, regulation is necessary to send a signal to all the stakeholders in the different sectors that things need to change in terms of financing.
There needs to be a legal framework and guidelines.
But, you know, several conditions. First condition, the regulation has to be relevant and flexible. Because, I mean, in Europe, we introduced this regulation not to sell non-electric cars in 2035. So, you know, all the manufacturers, they, you know, put everything in place in order to reach that target. The problem is that the consumers are not buying enough electric cars right now. And so we see that this regulation will not be effective.
Yeah, because you need demand. You need the demand side to actually adopt to regulation.
You know, if the consumers, they don't change their habits,
then nothing matters.
They're gonna, no, the conclusion is that they're going to buy cars, you know, from, you know, potentially other OEMs. So first of all, a regulation has to be relevant. It has to be flexible in order to adjust if the market is not reacting the way you anticipated it to react, and the regulation should be a worldwide one, because, you know, if, you know, Europe takes a regulation and nobody else take a regulation, then of course the competitiveness of Europe is hit. That's why these issues of regulation have to be discussed at G20 level and not, you know, at a lower level. Otherwise, you will have biases in terms of competitiveness of the different economies.
So we need the whole ecosystem. It's not only about the manufacturers, it's not only about the regulators. Please, Paul.
So it's about joining up all the thinking, because I think the reason why people maybe are dissuaded from buying an electric vehicle is because there's not an infrastructure in place to actually energize those vehicles. So when we're looking at the overall development and the overall delivery, we need to think about the future. It's about being future ready whenever we're doing something. And in construction, that's what we're doing. In design, we're thinking about what do we need to do in 50 years' time to actually maintain that particular requirement. So if we're reducing energy, you have to think in the future.
This is a great discussion. I wished I have more time to discuss more, but thank you so much. Let's give our speakers a round of applause. You did great. Thank you so much for your insights. You've been a great added value for this panel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All my airport people.